Recreation Conversations, the podcast. Welcome to Recreation Conversations, the podcast for high capacity women who lead publicly but long to reset privately. I'm your host, Latasha Martin, trusted advisor and founder of the Bonsoir Recreation Station. Each week, we hold honest conversations to help you reset, refocus, and rise in life, business, and faith. Let's get into today's episode. Hey, welcome everyone to today's episode of Recreation Conversations. I am so excited about today's guest. I met her a few months ago, and she's just a remarkable woman. Her name is Kelly Dumas. She is a licensed clinical social worker, entrepreneur, and community leader based in Buffalo, New York. She is the founder and board chair of Dumas R.I.S.E Providers, Inc., a nonprofit dedicated to expanding culturally centered mental health services, and she leads Dumas R.I.S.E LLC and Dumas R.I.S.E LCSW LLC. Man, that is a mouthful, and that is her private practice. Through her work, Kelly has built a unique ecosystem of programs that nurture mental wellness, elevate clinicians of color, and brings healing to communities through both traditional counseling and creates outlets like music and storytelling. Her journey has been shaped by the moments of reinvent. Her journey has been shaped by moments of reinvention, balancing her own healing, family, and leadership while creating space for others to thrive. Kelly is passionate about breaking down systematic barriers in mental health, building capacity for professionals of color, and cultivating spaces where individuals and communities can rise, restore, and rebuild. When she's not leading her organization, Kelly is often speaking, writing, and or performing, bringing together her love for advocacy, creativity, and community to inspire others in their own journeys of resilience and growth. So without further ado, I want to bring on my guest here today, Kelly Dumas. How are you today, Kelly?
I am well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
When you hear me read that intro, you're probably like, who's that? That amazing woman. That is you.
Yeah, it's like, ah.
So, because you have such a rich, packed background, and you really didn't even touch on some of your other roles. So, I'm glad, like, we could go on and write a whole book on your experience over the last 20 plus years in the mental health space. But for the focus of this podcast, what I would love for you to do is begin with thinking about a time in your life where it pushed you to recreate yourself, either personally, professionally, or both.
Well, I could probably, most relevant for me now, because I'm actually feeling like I'm still in the moment of recreating. But unexpectedly, a few years, I stopped counting time because it all kind of meshes together. But I found myself unexpectedly in the unemployment line.
Oh.
And this was after over a decade of, feeling stable and secure and thinking my future was kind of solidified and got a good retirement plan. And, I had everything planned out. And so unexpectedly, I was let go, and it kind of forced me into a space of really evaluating and reevaluating what's next, um, opening my ears to hear from God, and really just pushing forward into many of the things that you mentioned in the bio, or that I had referenced in the bio, are part of my recreation. I was kind of didn't ask for it, but was kind of forced into a space of recreation. So that would probably be one big one that comes to mind.
And I thank you for sharing that, because what I talk about often, especially with high capacity women, either God can say, here's a door and here's the cliff and jump, or sometimes he has to nudge us off the edge. And so it sounds like you were nudged off the edge into this space. And so, what I want you to do now is if you could walk the people who are listening, especially the Kellys that might be hearing this right now, maybe they're standing in that place of unemployment or just at a crossroad in their career, even trying to re enter in different ways, and help us to understand your process of recreating yourself. And then if you could just add in there, what did it look like to do this with community? So if there was any communities that you tapped into to help you through this process, share that with us. So walk us through your process. I know you said you're kind of in it, but I've seen some
Mhm.
successes showing on social media. So if you could share that process with us, I think that would be great.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start by sharing that I am a strong woman of faith. And I say that because I feel like without my faith and my belief in God and trusting that ultimately God is in control, there is a higher power at work. It's not, everything happens with purpose. So that for me, it has been a major piece that has continued to help me along the process of recreating. But and so I guess connected to that, it's leaning into that. Even though in an unexpected situation, feeling anger, confusion, uncertainty, I had to turn to my faith. I had to unplug from people in general. I guess when you think of community, sometimes people can be well intended, but I think when you're going through a major life transition or recreation, sometimes very well intended people can try to pour into us, and sometimes that kind of takes up the space of who God, I needed to hear from God. And so in that transition, I kind of, my husband, my children, but really kind of protecting myself or guarding myself from the opinions and thoughts, because so many people will come to you with ways to recreate and what you should be doing. But I wanted to make sure again that one, I wasn't leaning into what Kelly wanted to do, and I also wasn't leaning into what other people felt I was doing. And so what I would do, I have these conversations. So God speaks to me a lot through music. I'm a music person, so I know God's voice when I'm hearing and looking to. But and God knows me, my Lord Jesus. No, I needed to be nudged because I was asking, because I did get warning that a significant shift was happening, but you know. And so I asked God, make it plain. What should I be doing now? What would you have me to do? I know that I'm here to serve in this capacity. I know mental health is what I do. Music is what I've always done. And so I shared this with my husband. I was feeling this period of feeling restless, like I was pregnant. But I spent a month in Africa. I spent a month in Africa touring. And again, this was part of my unplugging. And I know everyone doesn't have the ability to do that. But because, again, as I said, I had savings, retirement, like everything was kind of, so I took a few thousand. I had a friend from Africa. She goes often. And so I went on a healing trek so that I can hear and I could spend some time sitting and seeing. And so during that whole process, I kept hearing restoration, restoration, restoration. God has given us a sound mind, restoration and sound environments. And so I kind of lean into with curiosity. Okay, God, I hear you. Now show me. And so in a matter, literally, I birthed a business. 2 months later, the private practice, and 2 months after that, the nonprofit. Then they're all centered around mental wellness and music. Community's role, I would say, I know part of what you mentioned is what role community play, and I was reflecting on that as I was talking, because I feel like um, community played different roles. So one, there were many. So sometimes what I have to also learn is even my community got redefined, because the
Mm.
people in community that I felt like I had when I was in a certain space here, those are not the people. It's interesting when people see you going through a transition or they're defining it. whatever, they might not realize what they're seeing, but it's interesting. So my community shifted. And so places where I would normally look to, I feel like they weren't necessarily there for me. And I was receiving support and community in other ways. I had people who showed up and believed in me even when I just didn't know. And I think that is important in going through a major transition, surrounding yourself with folks who also encourage you, that to tap into. So for me, it's my faith. And so I had to have that encouragement of people around me who helped me to lean into that, who also reinforced, what you have done, what you're able to do. I had a mentor tell me, you can you built all that, build it again. You can do this. So people like the Latashas. I've always had executive coaching throughout my career. However, now I'm in a transitioning space, and entrepreneurship was not something I ever saw myself doing. So being able to tap into other women of high capacity, have some guidance and feedback from you, Latasha, was very, very helpful. The for-profit world is still a new space for me. I come from nonprofit, and even though in nonprofit I learned to operate as though it's a business, it's still nonprofit, and so there's some differences. So I think community kind of evolved, and I had to be open to what that evolution looked like. And just honestly, some of it was sad for me because I'm trying to not necessarily use that because God keeps I want, what I was going to say is I lost some connections and some folks who I thought was community, but nothing is lost. And that's why I said I'm in a process of restoration, and God is giving me so much more. But I did kind of in a way grieve what I am terming as the loss of some relationships and some things that I thought um, were kind of core central for me, but also in knowing there had to be a shedding for wherever God has taken me to this next chapter, and so some things had to leave.
So you said a lot of things there. So that's so interesting. I wasn't interested in doing nonprofit, yet you birthed three things. So three children, three entities of their own, of which again I've seen some successes there. Your nonprofit getting a lot of funding, your for profit, being set up that in a way that it takes other not for profit clinicians or therapy groups, it takes them years to get where you've gotten in less than a year. And then even taking that trip out of the country and really making sure you could be in a completely different environment. And what it reminds me of so much is, even when you think of the story of Abram, not Abraham, but Abram, when he says, I will need you to go to a land that I will show you. So he took you to a place connected to our roots to help you reframe. But the thing that you said that I think I would love for you just to spend a little bit more time on before we go to this last question is that you talked about that transition of communities and looking around when you're having those moments to celebrate. How did that feel when you looked around and you're like, wow, this isn't probably what I thought would be the people around me. It looks different. How did you mentally like deal with those experiences?
Mhm. I guess honestly, and I guess if I'm going to be, again, being truthful and honest and transparent, it was some sadness with that. And I've asked God to deal with my heart as it relates to that, because I know that God has nothing but good intention. He wants nothing but good for us. And yes, as I look around at where I'm at and who's there with me, and I am very grateful to have new relationship and new connections. And so and again, that's why I said in starting out, I feel like I know I am still on a journey of recreation. And so I feel a gratefulness, happiness, anticipation of what's ahead. But yes, also in those moments as I look around, there's a small sense of sadness because there's some people that I have feeling, I feel like true connection and feeling for. And so um like I said, I ask God to feel that and address that in my heart. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, hearing you share that, I think is so great, and I find the irony of it all, right? That you're a clinician, right? That deals with mental health as you're going through these transitions, and so there,
Mhm.
as we go to the final question, what I want you to think about in the mindset of that woman who might be listening to this podcast today, and she just received the information or the news that, oh my goodness, an unplanned transition happened for something that you may have been loyal to for years and just been there and felt like that was going to be my forever story. And no matter what people were saying, I thought that that was still a part of my story. If you had to go back to that time, what are some specific words? And if you want to bring in God, I think that is awesome. But like some specific words that you would say to her to encourage her, so that she could go to this point of where I see Kelly today a little quicker, even though we never know God's timing. But what would you say to her?
I would say one of the um, best uh, investments and trust and what you can lean into, believe in yourself. That's one of the best. Often, so when I would, it's like in that moment, I would challenge the individual, that woman, to speak to yourself, encourage yourself, and first and foremost, have faith in believing in you have overcome obstacles. You have gotten to where you were because of what was inside of you. And that's what you're going to need to lean into now. In addition to that, because I feel like I was grateful that, like I said, I had some folks to remind me of that, but also take some time to get silent, because in the silence, you can internally, you can hear, like I said, for me it was important, I was looking to hear from God, but also doing some self-reflection on what it is that you think that you are purposed to do, what are you skilled to do. And so, but sometimes that requires some solitude. So like I said, for me, I needed to get out this country, and it doesn't always have to be that, it could be just like I said, turning off the outlets, the communication, and going on just silence and not having so many different folks speaking into you, so that you can kind of connect with your body, your mind, your soul, your spirit, and open your ears for and prepare for what's next. So I would say to find time for yourself, to center yourself. Don't be reactive. It is so tempting to be reactive, and especially I think that feeling of desperation, because of course the natural thing you think of is, I got bills. All I was thinking, like, I got a mortgage, I got car notes. I like, my life did not, my bills didn't go away because this happened. Like, how am I gonna pay my bills? And I think kind of that desperation sometimes causes us to leap and jump into other things that can worsen the situation, which is why I think it is important to be still, so that you can center yourself and work towards creating a plan. And then the last thing I would say is, if you don't, and Tasha, you could probably, I think people need to have like a therapist and or a life coach. Sometimes you need to, especially if you are someone that's been in a career for a while, and you're kind of, this might be time for you to reach out to a coach for some advisement, someone who professionally can provide you with some things that you should be thinking about, looking at, as you are entering into an unknown period, a chapter of your life. So I think reaching out for some expert support around this could also be very helpful. Just to, sometimes just a neutral voice can help us look at and see things in a way that we haven't even looked at. You might have the skills and talents that you are harboring, and you haven't thought about using them in a certain way. Well, when you're
Right.
speaking to a coach or someone, and they can see that, like, well, wait a minute, this opportunity is available. And it's like, oh, I never thought of that. So that's what I would share.
I think that is such good information. And one of the things I want to make sure we make is very clear, because I think diversifying that support is so critical, because a mental health professional is critical. A coach is critical. They should not be interacting and trying to play both of those roles. Even if they have the competence to do it, you're trying to work on two different parts of that person in a support. So I think that's important. And then you have that third piece, which is that spiritual guidance. So having that trifecta, if you are a person who finds yourself in a space that you hadn't planned for, that crossroad, whatever that looks like, I think that that is critically important. And so I thank you so much for sharing those answers. Now, I do know you have some amazing things that are happening in each one of your businesses. I know you have a fundraiser coming up, I think this fall. So we're going to post that information if people want to get a ticket or support that. And then you also, I think, have a call to action for clinicians of color. So as we wrap up today, if you wanted to share a few of those things, and then after we air this, we can have the links for people if they fit those criteria to connect in either of those ways, but share with people like the tangible results and the if you are responsive and not reactive, these are the results that can happen in a short period of time. So share a few of those things with us so that we can make sure we can embrace people. And then if there's a geography requirement, make sure you say that too, because I think licensing is part of some of the stuff you do. I'm not in that
Oh,
nonprofit space. So when you're making that call, because this goes to anywhere, make sure that people are clear about who can or cannot say yes to the opportunities.
yes, yes. So grateful for the Blue Fund. The nonprofit Dumas Rise Providers, we just were was recently awarded a $200,000 grant from the Blue Fund. We also had a few other smaller grants come in, but that grant is going to allow us to expand on the initiative building capacity for clinicians of color. So we are in the process of accepting applications for mental health professionals of color. So anyone who is in the mental health field, or you could be bachelor's level, looking to go into a career of diagnosing and treating mental health. Right now there's 27 of us in the cohort. We have like 8 slots. And I've really been focusing on individuals who are on a track to get a degree, or they can result in you being able to get a license or credentialing for diagnosing, because we need more of us that can diagnose and treat. Um, so that is one. And then the fundraiser you mentioned, we have one major fundraiser every year, our Motown Mental Wellness Concert. So as I mentioned, music and mental wellness, I'm a vocalist. I have a Motown band. And so this is actually 3 of us in the band are mental health professionals. So it's a fun way. We do Motown, we sing, it's a full live band, and we incorporate some training techniques in regards to mental wellness. I also have a monthly article in the Challenger on mental wellness. You can keep an eye out for that. I don't know which week, I think it varies in terms of which week it runs, but I do have one that's in there every month. And then my private practice, we take insurances. We take most of the major insurances. The only one that's coming to mind is Fidelis. They were closed, but we are accepting new clients. So I have the websites. People can reach out. www.dumasriseproviders.org. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Kelly, look at that. All within a couple of years, look how things turned around so amazingly. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today on Recreation Conversations. And I just want you to just be encouraged, because hopefully this can show people all of this turnaround has happened within less than 2.5 years, probably not even that long. And we
Oh,
went from probably a year and a half, right? About a year and a
yeah.
half, we've had a complete turnaround from something that could have seemed like it was your darkest time to now being in a position where God has got you leading these major initiatives, and they are all like structurally set up legally the right way. None of this is bootlegging. So I love that about what we see, how when God does it, he always does it with excellence and exceeds our expectations every time. So congratulations on all of that. Yes.
Thank you. I just want to say my shirt, I know y'all can't see it. It says, I'm just out here trusting God. So that's what I'm doing.
I love that. Just out here trusting God. That is amazing. So thank you so much. Like I said, I'm excited that we were able to have you share this here and just talking about all of the different pieces. Kelly is a member of the Vanswy Recreation Station, which is a community for high capacity women. And so we just are here to celebrate and collaborate and help women be the best version of themselves in a godly way. So thank you so much. I'm gonna take you off and put you in a green room, and then I'll be back to you as soon as we finish up. So please hang tight. So today's episode of Recreation Stations has just blessed me so much. It has been an honor to hear this, and if you would like to be a guest on the on an episode of the Recreation Conversation, stay tuned to our outro, and I'll give you specific instructions on how. God bless, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Recreation Conversations. I hope today's message reminded you don't have to do this alone. If you're ready for deeper connection, real conversations, and a private space to rise again, join us inside of the Vanswy Recreation Station. You can learn more and schedule a quick connection call at latasha115959.com/meet. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Your story might be the spark another woman needs. Until next time, keep leading with faith, living in alignment, and remember, reset, refocus, and rise.